appears to be none other than Lady Macbeth, that byword for evil, ruthlessness, and the worst excesses of ambition. There is one other possible candidate. In an early list of Scottish kings, someone, probably the compiler, has inserted beside his mention of Malcolm III the words, "His mother was called Suhin." Suhin would have been the wife of King Duncan I, who ruled Scotland from 1034 until 1040. She is not named in any other source, but the 14th century chronicler John of Fordun says that Duncan's wife was a relative, possibly a sister, of Siward, Earl of Northumbria. It is generally taken that Malcolm was born about 1031, so his mother was obviously alive then. But the problem is that we do not know whether she survived until her husband came to the throne in 1034. For the first-named consort, we must therefore wait for Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth's reputation derives from Shakespeare's famous tragedy called after her husband. This powerful drama recounts how Macbeth, urged on by his adoring wife, murders King Duncan I as he lies asleep in their castle and seizes the throne for himself. Shakespeare does not indicate Duncan's age, but the king is usually played as a frail old man to add poignancy to his plight. After Macbeth has dispatched their victim, Lady Macbeth smears the royal attendants with the dead man's blood so that they will be blamed for the crime. This done, she is overwhelmed by guilt and sleepwalks, endlessly trying to wash away the blood from her hands. Shortly afterwards, she dies. The manner of her death is not specified, but the implication is that she has committed suicide. Macbeth is then killed by Duncan's vengeful son, Malcolm. Such is the account given in the celebrated Scottish play. No one, of course, would expect Shakespeare to give a strictly factual catalogue of events. His genius lay in creating powerful works of dramatic imagination, and directors and producers of his plays add their own interpretation. In reality, Duncan, for instance, was not an aged and infirmed man when he died. He was 39. He had ruled for 6 years when Macbeth rebelled against him and either killed him in a skirmish near Elgin or had him assassinated. There is nothing to suggest that Duncan was a guest in his house at the time. So did Shakespeare also alter Lady Macbeth beyond all recognition, transforming a perfectly innocuous woman into the villain of the piece. If we look at the various sources used by Shakespeare, we will find that he was not the first to cast Lady Macbeth in the role of her husband's evil genius. The dramatist almost certainly knew Hector Boece's History of Scotland, which had been published in Paris in 1526, and he was probably familiar with William Stewart's The Book of the Chronicles of Scotland, a verse adaptation of Boece, apparently written in 1535. Shakespeare would also have read Raphael Holinshed's History of Scotland to 1571. Little is said about Lady Macbeth in Boece's text, but Stewart's adaptation claims that Macbeth's wife taunted her faint-hearted husband with cowardice in her efforts to persuade him to commit the murder. Holinshed echoes this theme, commenting that Lady Macbeth lay sore upon Macbeth to get him to murder Duncan, for she was very ambitious, burning an unquenchable desire to bear the name of a queen. Shakespeare's interpretation is rather different, of course. He does not portray Lady Macbeth as someone anxious for her own advancement. She is passionately in love with her husband, and her only desire is to see an increase in his prestige. All her thoughts are for him. Just as we should not look to Shakespeare's Macbeth for historical accuracy, neither can we accept his sources unquestioningly on the assumption that because they were written more than 4 centuries ago, they are probably correct in what they say. On the contrary, we have to remember that although they may seem to us to be hallowed by antiquity, the writings of Boece, Stewart and Holinshed were composed almost 500 years after the events they describe. So when did Lady Macbeth first assume a sinister character? Where did Stewart come by his interpretation of her? Did she feature in oral tradition, perhaps? Have the details of her own life been wrongly remembered, or has she been confused with someone else altogether? It is impossible to say, for the facts are few and far between. We know neither the year nor the place of Lady Macbeth's birth, but it seems that she bore the Gaelic first name of Gruach. It used to be said with some confidence that she was the granddaughter of King